welcome to this episode 4 of the Darts World Weekly podcast. I'm AJ Umston Toft.
And I'm Harry Masterson.
And how are we doing this week?
Not bad. I've just got back from being at home for a couple of days and just basically got back and straight into recording with you. So very much looking forward to this next episode, AJ.
Time to relax, but now straight back at it.
Literally.
And speaking of straight back at it, let's go to the news.
And what better place to start than the recent two Pro Tours? We saw yesterday Ryan Searle, he reached two finals in Wigan last week, and he went one further in Leicester, beating Gary Anderson in the final. And got a mad stat is as well. Ryan Searle actually averaged lower than both Michael van Gerwen and Gary Anderson in the semi-finals and final, but he still got the win, and he's off the mark on the Pro Tour this year.
Yes, a fantastic result following on from the tremendous form from the previous week. Ryan Searle, as we said, repeating myself, two runners-up, but now he's combined them and got them into a winner's medal.
Exactly, and another player that had to survive a bit of match darts early on in Luke Littler. He played Keane Barry early on. He was 5-3 down, but saved the match, won 6-5, and went on to reach the quarterfinals. And even though he didn't win the tournament, there is an argument that he is starting to build that prize money up, and this will all benefit him later down the line for qualifying for the major events.
Yes, so we've had a few spikes in performance in the first two tournaments, and it's happening in these two tournaments as well. Callum Ridds with a semi-final berth, and Luke Littler back in amongst it into the quarterfinals, and Steve Lennon, a new tour card holder for him after losing it last year. But again, another quarterfinal, only being pipped by Michael van Gerwen 6-5 there. So there's been some interesting developments.
You mentioned Callum Ridds, and he won on the Pro Tour last year. He got one of the tournament titles, and again, he played Luke Littler in the quarterfinals of Event 3, and he played very well, 103 average and a first semi-final for him. And Michael van Gerwen also making his first appearance on the Pro Tour this year after opting not to play last week and reaching the semi-finals in your first tournament. You can't be too disappointed in that.
And yeah, speaking of new tour card holders, you've got Leighton Bennett getting into the top 16. You know, it's becoming now where it's a cliche, but it's actually true this time, where every year it's getting more and more wide open on these Pro Tour events. And, there's not a definite top 16, week in, week out like there has been in the past. It's, you are getting a few names coming in and amongst it more often than not. I mean, Raymond van Barneveld as well, top 16, narrowly being pipped by Danny Noppert, 6-3 there in their top 16 tie. But as I said, it's getting really, really wide open now.
And you move on to Event 4, and Barney again reached the quarterfinals in Event 4. So we went one further today, and it also showed Damon Heta was the winner of Event 4. He beat Chris Dobie 8-4 in the final. He did average 3 points lower, but he did get the job done.
Yes, and looking into that match particularly, there was 4 ton plus checkouts by Damon Heta. It said on the stats, which goes to show trebles for show and doubles for dough. But we're getting into that where we did mention in week 1 where you're going to be seeing more in the hundreds and give or take 1 or 2 points there. I mean, we're in the high 90s on a regular occurrence now, and you're seeing a lot more 3-figure averages in these events, which is showing the class is being amped up a bit.
Another player who's returned to form over these last 3 Players' Championship tournaments is in fact Peter Wright. He's reached 2 semi-finals and a quarter-final in the last 3 events. So, and everyone at the start of the year was saying that he's losing it, he's getting older, it's time to stop. He shouldn't have been picked for the Premier League, but I think he's just proven everyone wrong, and he's returned to using the Michael van Gerwen darts, and he's proven the point week in, week out, and I hope it continues for him.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has blips in darts, and it's how long they can be. That can be the effect. But I think with Peter, with him changing darts as often as he has done, but as we said in the previous podcast, if he goes back to his old faithfuls, the Van Gerwen-esque darts, we'll call them, he'll get back into winning form and he'll get back into the last stages of events, and it's proving us right, which is always nice to see. But credit to Damon Heta, he was going into a bit of a purple patch towards the latter end of last season, and now he seems to have been picking that up again now in tournament 4.
And Damon Heta becomes the 4th different winner on the Pro Tour from 4 different events. So it just shows that anyone can win on their day.
It is wide open.
Very.
So going from the Players' Championships, we'll rewind it back a little bit and we will go into the Premier League. That was week 3 in Glasgow. And going through the results, on the first round, you had Rob Cross going over Michael Smith 6-4, MVG beating Peter Wright 6-2, Luke Humphreys beating Nathan Aspinall 6-3, and then Gerwin Price upsetting Luke Littler on a 6-5. But the weekly winner for the second time is MVG. He seems to be in that bullish mood, as I mentioned again in a previous podcast. He just seems to now want to be the man, not just not just part of the fold. He wants to be high and above everybody else, and you can see that in his attitude, and you can see that in his performance.
I called it last week that Michael van Gerwen was going to win night 2 in Glasgow, and he is proving it year on year. He's got a title to defend. He's the reigning champion. He's top of the league now by 3 points. And in Berlin, he averaged 300 plus scores, but in Glasgow, it was a bit different. He didn't average over 100 in any match he played, but he took his chances. A bit like the Dutch Darts Masters final against Luke Littler. He missed just 4 darts at double in that game, whereas Littler outscored him throughout that whole match. And it just shows that, as you mentioned it earlier on, trebles for show, doubles for dough, and Van Gerwen last week in Glasgow proved that.
So, and as a mutual friend says to me, sometimes you have to win ugly. And I mean, 90 plus average is nowhere near ugly, but compared to what he has been throwing recently, you have to sometimes take the game by the scruff of the neck and get the win. And he's doing it well. And as I said, it's in bullish form. He's amped up the aggression and he's amped up the bravado, but it's working for him.
And if we go to the other side of the table, there are still 2 players after 3 weeks that are yet to pick up a win in Nathan Aspinall and Peter Wright. Would you say that, is it panic stations yet for them, or do you feel like there is still loads more time to go in this Premier League and they can claw their way back into a playoff race?
Well, we're into the quarterway point coming this Thursday in Newcastle. And I think if they don't get any points this week, then I think some panic stations might be up. I mean, the top 4 could be done by week 8. The way things are going at the moment and the way the results are going, you could, by I'd say week 10, week 11, you could have a defined top 4, maybe a top 3, and then people are battling for 4th. But like we said with the last World Championships and this Players' Championships, this is wide open, and I think people will start rolling into form, and it'll just make the games a lot more interesting.
And both of us in our predictions last week writ off the world champion, and I think that was a bit of a stupid idea from both of us. He had a very good tournament in Glasgow last week. He reached the final. He averaged his best. He scored his best average in the tournament so far and beating Nathan Aspinall 6-3 in the quarterfinals, an average of 105.53. And he's in the playoff race now. He's actually in the playoffs now. He's got 5 points after reaching the final. He earned 3 in Glasgow. He took 2 in Berlin the week before. So the world champion is getting there. Yeah,
and it's his debut, like it is Luke Littler's, but he's finding his feet now in this format. I mean, these stage events, they're going to be used to him. He's had the European tour as his training ground, and then he's done this onto the majors, and now the Premier League. as I said, this is really wide open, which doesn't just make it interesting for the viewers at home and for the medias. It makes it very interesting for us in the Predict League, but that's later. That is later. But moving on from the professional ranks or the PDC, we will go into the World Seniors Darts Championships.
And a very, very good weekend for the Highlander, Big John Henderson. A first senior world championship for him on his debut as well. And one thing that really impressed me about that win is that he in his semi-final and final, he didn't even drop a single set against Jim Long and Colin McGarry. So very well played, John.
If there was a phrase of doing the right thing at the right time, it's John Henderson in the last two matches. But I've got to say a special shout out to an outstanding performance by Lisa Ashton all weekend, getting into the quarterfinals and getting then into the semi-finals. The game against Chris Mason was a finishing, a mugging masterclass, should I say, where Mason may have set himself up for a double or missed a double, and Lisa was right there ready to pick his pocket, and it was an outstanding performance.
Absolutely. She beat Michael Huntley in the first round and also a former Lakeside winner in Scott Mitchell. And it was a fantastic weekend for Lisa. Definitely one of the big stories to come out of the Circus Tavern this weekend. And she played very well. She played very well. She proved she's just come back from an injury as well. She had surgery at the back end of last year, and it just shows that she says she's still recovering, but the confidence is still there.
Yeah, I mean, Lisa is a fantastic player and has been for many years. And I think it was Richard Ashdown who said that what Lisa does is she looks at what she throws at, and then she throws at what she's looking at. There's no other airs or graces or game management or board management or anything. She has her routines and she sticks with them, and it works. It's worked for her for many years.
And a final mention, even though Colin McGarry did not win the title this weekend, he definitely improved on his performance last year at the Senior World Championships. He went out in the first round against Phil Taylor. This year, different story, goes on to reach the final. And he beat some big players to get there as well. Yes,
I mean, the Mark Dudbridge, the former World Championship runner-up and match play runner-up and former Winmau World Master. I mean, no mean feat. I mean, Mark has obviously been out of the cycle, in the amateur games, but now he's in these seniors events, and he's proven why they call him Flash. He's but an amazing performance by Colin.
And the Chief took down Lisa Ashton in the end. And do you know what? Lisa Ashton, she put up a very, very good performance in that semi-final. It was by a one set, a 3-2 win for Colin, but Lisa pushed him all the way.
Yes, and you can see that in the averages as well. There was hardly anything in it. It was a good. I think this World Championships is. I mean, I know it's seniors, but it does remind me of the old Lakeside days or the Embassy when it was, where it was just tense matches. You might not have three-figure averages, but the games themselves were very, very tense to watch, and the atmosphere I thought was very good as well. The players were given tremendous respect, and yeah, it was proper darts, as the saying goes.
And we can still sit here and say that the players did put on a show. There were some top finishers over the weekend. John Henderson in his first leg of the tournament took out 160 against Trina Gulliver, and there was also 170 from David Cameron against compatriot Jim Long in the opening round. So seniors have still got it.
Definitely. You don't lose it. So moving on from the seniors, we go on to the WDF. And this week it was the Scottish Open weekend, where you had the Scottish Masters on the Saturday and the Scottish Open on the Sunday. And Gary Robson rolling back the years, 8 years since his last WDF title. Back then it was the BDO. That's how long ago it was. But no, winning the Scottish Open.
Indeed, Big Robbo getting on the getting into the winner's circle once again. He beat Kieran Smith in a last leg decider in the final, and he also took out the defending champion in Jordan Brooks in the semi-finals. So he didn't do it the easy way, but he is this year's Scottish Open champion, and well played, Gary.
Yeah, it's always been a rock solid player, very tough to beat. I've played him many times in my days in the BDO. I've played him in Belgium, and it was always one of them where it might have been 3-2 back then, or it's always a tough one. But he's a tough one to crack.
And moving on to the Scottish Classic, which was the tournament on the day before, we saw Glenn Parsons, a Scottish international, winning the Scottish Classic. He beat Dave Prinz 5-4 in the final, and Jordan Brooks may not have won a tournament this weekend, but 2 semi-finals. Not too bad.
Yeah, that'll get them boxes ticked for the Lakeside this year. He's doing some really good performances on the WDF circuit, and being like Fleetwood Wave, seeing him in local events and in Super League as well. And he seems to be finding his feet more now in these events.
And moving on to the ladies' side of things, we saw Fallon Sherrock pick up the Scottish Open ladies title. She beat Vicky Prum 5-0 in the final. But she did come through a real battle with Anka Zylstra in the semi-finals. The averages were very, very similar, and it was a last leg decider, 4-3 win for the Queen of the Palace.
Yes, it's carrying on from Las Vegas and doing very well there, and doing very well over here as well. And in the classics, the Scottish Classic Women's, it was Eileen de Graaf pipping Lerena Reitenberg 5-2 in the final. But Lorraine Hyde, local Scottish player, gets into the semi-finals of that event.
As well as the former WDF Girls Champion, Eleanor Cairns, both having very good weekends despite not winning. But you can definitely take confidence from these performances in these prestigious events and build on it going into the rest of the year.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the season's finishing October this year, I do believe, in the WDF, ready for Lakeside, and there's again a lot of players in these latter stages picking up them valuable points needed.
And a big story coming out of the Scottish Classic men's doubles, and Scott Robertson and Stephen Mitchie were the winners. They whitewashed PDC tour card holders James Hurrell and Cameron Menzies in the finals. So I mentioned anyone can beat anyone. We're also seeing non-tour card holders whitewash tour card holders.
Yeah, this illusion of what some people may say is the gap between the WDF and the PDC. Obviously, there's more TV presence of the PDC, so they're used to that environment. But on the floor, anyone can beat anybody, and this proves it.
And going on to the ladies' doubles, it was a double for Fallon Sherrock this weekend in Renfrew. She and Suzanne Smith were the victors in the Scottish Open women's doubles. They beat Lorraine Hyde and Louise Patterson in the final 3-1. So a very good weekend for Fallon Sherrock and Suzanne Smith.
Absolutely. And congratulations to all the winners there in Scotland.
And moving on from the WDF and onto the Modus Super Series, and Scott Taylor was the Series 6 champion. And I think we mentioned this last week. Him and Tom Sykes were the standout 2 players from Championship Week. They fought until the end in Group A. Tom edged it and secured his spot in finals night. Scott Taylor moved into Group B. I said to you last week that he would have played himself into form going into that group, and he topped the group, 2 points clear of Reece Colley, and it was them 2 in the final, and Scott got his revenge.
Yes, Scott proving form where I said, usually he starts a bit slow at the start of a weekend or of a Q school, and then towards the end he just seems to pull out clutch darts and pull out clutch finishing. And there was some audacious finishing by Scott Taylor, but he is known for that. Like in the local events, he'll go for different ways and try different things, but it's just what works for him. And but really solid play by Scott Taylor, and commiseration to Tom Sykes. I mean, the man in form and the man that was, getting all the buzz on Twitter and with snippets and here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, Scott Taylor, as you said, taking his revenge and taking the winner's purse.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that Scott Taylor doesn't start quick, but there was a game earlier on in the week between Sykes and Scott Taylor, and Sykes won. He averaged 109. Scott Taylor averaged 102. And he said, if that's considered starting slow, then I don't know what starts quick. Then what happens when you start quick?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, he can just fall into a purple patch or rise up to a purple patch, and he just seems to then be absolutely relentless. And I know that nickname's used by someone else, but that definitely marks out Scott Taylor, in my opinion.
And moving on to this week's Modus Super Series, it's a double trouble week, AJ. First time in the history of the Modus Super Series that I've seen the players actually start on a double. It's like they're bringing the Grand Prix into the Modus Super Series. And at the minute, it is a two-way contest between Robert Thornton and Steve Brown, both level on 14 points with 1 day left to play tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of the double in, double out, and on my travels with my day job, I was in Bristol for a few audits at one of our sites, and I did venture into Brown's Bar, and where they had a doubles tournament and that week, and I got to the semi-final that time, but might be a popular game in Bristol. I don't know, but double in, double out. But no, it's a good test, and I think it's a bit more. Just puts a bit more emphasis on the games at Modus. It's something different. It's something to get the audience in. And I think they should do more games and maybe perhaps on more regional boards, perhaps.
I was going to ask you as well. Do you think that obviously we don't see a lot of tournaments throughout the year that start on doubles, but would you like to see more of that going in? Because we all know that doubles is the most important part of darts. Like if you don't hit doubles, you don't win. It's as simple as that. And with double starts, I feel like that is an opportunity for the players to practice on their doubles. And if you don't hit it at the start, then you're not going to start. It's as simple as that.
Possibly, but I think the key is, does it make good television, players missing a load of doubles? I mean, there's arguments either way. I mean, I think it'd be interesting as a one-off, and I think that's why the Grand Prix works the way it does. But I think maybe the inclusion of different variations of games, maybe American cricket or tactics as we call it over here. I think there's a viable option for that to be televised. And as I said, maybe every now and again, or if they do events for charity or something, like localized boards, like a Yorkshire board and the Manchester board that we have where I am, and the Ipswich Fives board. I think just different variations of games, just to perk the interest. But I think that would be more suited to Modus, where they could do it for a week and viewers can see it rather than be a whole tournament, PDC wise.
And one you mentioned the difficult Manchester boards that in the in what you just said a second ago, and I think that would make for very entertaining telly because I don't think many people will have seen that dartboard, and from seeing it, it looks a very difficult proposition.
Yes, it is not for the faint-hearted. It's they call it slip up for a reason because I mean you can hit the double going away round, but when you're coming back, that's when sometimes the issues awry. But no, I think more variation in the boards, more variation in the games is definitely suited to Modus because I think it just brings a unique selling point for viewers and for the betting and things like that.
Finally, moving on to the ADC, we're now a week into the Vault 6.0, and we are now starting to see who are the leaders of each region. There's a close battle going on at the minute in Scotland. Two players level on 64 points. Davy Kerwin. I think a lot of people might know who he is. He's played on the Modus Super Series before.
Yeah.
He also played at the Lakeside World Championships last year, and he's currently level with Graham Borland in the Scotland region.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's week one, but all these areas are very highly contested week in week out on the vaults. Um, for me, unfortunately, I can't stay in one area with my job, but I would when I played in the events when I was local. It was always hotly contested. You had plenty in Pendlebury club. You had multiple county players there at a time, and then you throw in the likes of a Dave Evans or a Pete Hudson, and it's tough going.
And moving on to the other regions, Paul Hogan, who recently reached the quarterfinals of the World Seniors Championships, he is currently top of the South East of London region, and James Richardson is also going well in the Midlands. He's not top, but he is third, and we all know with the vault, if you finish in the top 32 places, you get that chance at finals day, and the opportunity to play on the Modus Super Series will appear if you come through that tournament.
Yes, and to be in the top 32, obviously you have to be there going regular, but it gives you an outsider's chance, and maybe you might fall out a bit of form during the vault, but when it comes towards the end of the vault, you might pick your form back up, and you're on your way to Modus.
And finally, moving on to your region, the Northwest, currently Russ Fielden leads the way, and 12 points behind is Jason Chisnell. But we know that there's still 6 weeks left to play, and anything can happen in these round robin competitions.
Yes, and with the Northwest, they're very spaced out, so you're not going to see players going to multiple events unless they're making that extra commitment, which is highly commendable. But they are spaced out, so you're gonna, if one player is being dominant on one of the days, that's where they're getting that form from. But sometimes you might have to travel a bit further to get them extra points needed. So that was the news that was. Now we go on to the preview of the Premier League, and with that, it is the Predictor League. We are in Newcastle, and a very interesting set of games lined up this week, as always, with Nathan Aspinall, Michael Smith, Rob Cross, Luke Humphreys, Peter Wright, Luke Littler, and Gerwin Price versus MVG. So first game up, Nathan Aspinall and Michael Smith. Who have you got and why?
I've noticed throughout this whole tournament, I have not backed Michael Smith on a single week so far. And this is the week where that changes. I am going with Michael Smith to win. I think it will be very close. I think it's going to be 6-5 between the two. I think Aspinall will give him a very good game, but I see the bully boy bouncing back after defeat to Rob Cross last week.
Have you been looking at my notes here?
There's no camera, guys. Don't worry. I can't see his notes.
No, I have gone for the same result. Michael Smith getting the win over Nathan, but I have gone 6-4. I've gone for that extra breaking throw. So that moves us on to game 2, an interesting one. Rob Cross versus Luke Humphreys. Now, Rob Cross has been coming into form and getting into the last stages, and Luke Humphreys, I wouldn't say having a mare, but he's not been getting results all his way. But I think this is where, after last week's good results, Luke Humphreys powers on, and again, I've gone with 6-4.
I'm not looking at your notes, AJ, but I've also got 6-4 Luke Humphreys. He's not played on the Pro Tour this week. I don't know what the reason is behind that, but from what I saw last week in Glasgow, he looked back to his normal self. 300 plus averages. He reached the final. And Rob Cross did look good against Michael Smith last week, don't get me wrong, but I feel that the world champion will prevail in this game.
Yes. And game 3, definitely old versus new here. The oldest player in the league versus the youngest player in the league. Luke Littler versus Peter Wright. It's your turn. So who have you got and why?
In my opinion, I think this is the most difficult game to predict this week. I think Peter Wright is coming into this, as I mentioned earlier on when we were talking about the Pro Tour, he's in fine form, 2 semis and a quarterfinal. And we move on to Luke Littler, who he's taken the Premier League by storm. Like, he did lose in the quarterfinals for the first time last week, but I feel that he's going to bounce back this week. And I'm going to go with it to be 6-4 to Luke Littler.
Interesting. Now, this is where I play my shock card. I just think the form that Peter Wright's suddenly gone into with this changing of his darts back to his old faithfuls and getting into semi-finals and quarterfinals, And I'm not calling it a dip. I'm just calling, the results didn't go the way Luke Littler was probably anticipating, especially today with a first round defeat to James Wade. I'm going to put my neck on the line here. I'm going to say Peter Wright pips it 6-5.
Thing is, I could see that going either way because Peter Wright, as I said, he is playing well, and Luke Littler, he did show last week that he can lose in these events. Like, it's not going to go his way every single week. And Peter Wright is due a win in the Premier League this year. He's not got off the mark yet in terms of points, but it could happen this week. I hope it doesn't, though.
Very
for the predictions league,
selfish.
guys. Not. I don't want Peter Wright to lose. It's for the predictions league. I'm not doing that forfeit at the end.
Oh, we've got some stuff on that anyway. Moving on to the last game of the quarterfinals, we have Gerwin Price versus MVG. And again, the way he's playing at the moment, I can't see any other result apart from an MVG win. Now, this will be a really good match. This will have all your highlights, your big finishes, and your multiple 180s. They're both in good form. But I think just the power of MVG and his bullishness carries on, and he takes this by one breaker throw, 6-4.
This is literally another same prediction. I've also gone with it to be 6-4 to Michael van Gerwen. I do think it will be a high quality game. I think both players, like, you can literally just go on Dark Connect now and look at their matches and see the averages that they're producing. It is ridiculous, especially Gerwin Price. He averaged 110 last week in Wigan. And I do think Michael van Gerwen will prevail in this game. He is coming into this on the back of 2 straight night wins. And I do feel like he will be Gerwin Price, but it will be very close. And as I said in the Peter Wright Littler game, if Gerwin Price does win, it would not surprise me. It could go literally either way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what makes this very interesting, this Premier League, is that there's a lot of games of 50-50, toss a coin, nearest to the bull essentially wins it because each leg goes with throw. So it is very interesting. Let's try something different for the weekly winner. Let's go on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. MVG.
Luke Humphries.
Oh, we've got different. So
yes,
you have gone for Luke Humphries. I'm seeing 3 on the spin here for MVG. Again, just this bullishness, and he just seems to have just gone into full MVG Mighty Mike mode. And, he seems to be, when he was having issues with his darts when he first joined Windmill, where, he just wanted it to be perfect, which is absolutely fine. There was little dips in form and here and there, and people were writing him off. And it is becoming wide open, I say, as we said, in World Championships and Players Championships. There's going to be peaks and troughs of players. But I think with the Premier League and with MVG, I can't really see another winner.
No, I completely understand where you're coming from. He knows what it takes to reach the playoffs. He has got to grips with this format better than anyone, in my opinion. He won 2 nights. He's already won 2 nights in a row this year. He won 3 in a row last year, and who's to say he won't do that again this time around? But I think Luke Humphries last week, he showed that he was playing himself into form. 300 plus averages. He was very close in the final as well. He lost in a last leg decider against Van Gerwen in the final, but he didn't play in the Pro Tours this week, and it was my reason. It's been my reason for the winner for the last 3 weeks. I said Luke Littler was going to win because he didn't play in the Masters. I said that Van Gerwen was going to win last week because he didn't play in the opening 2 Pro Tours. And now Luke Humphries hasn't played in these 2 Pro Tours, and I think the rest will do the world champion good. And I see him becoming the 3rd different night winner in this year's Premier League.
Are you sponsored by Mars? Anyway, we are looking for sponsors, but you're going on the theory of work, rest, and play, aren't you? Really?
Literally.
So there's our predictor leagues for this week. Now, with the results of last week, which we've already gone through, we don't have to repeat ourselves. It's made things very interesting. There is 2 points in it now. Harry, you are on 16 and I am on 18. So still in the lead, but only just. So I really need a good week here just to make that gap a bit wider again. No, I don't want to not forfeit.
Neither do I.
And speaking of forfeits, we had a suggestion from AIM180. How's this one? At the tournament after the Premier League is finished, the loser would have to wear a football shirt, mainly being the Manchester City one.
Well, we're both Man United fans, so this sounds daunting.
Yes, he's even put the caveat of if not City, then Liverpool.
No, we're not doing it. No. I would rather do City than Liverpool. I actually no, not Liverpool, not a chance. Please, please, I've got to win this. If it is Liverpool, I've got to win this predictor league. And thankfully, last week I made things interesting. So hopefully, it's another good week this week.
I think I'm going to put both in there because I'm confident I'm going to win this. So Liverpool.
I hope your confidence is going to be the undoing of you in this. I really do.
So, as we've said previously, if you have any suggestions for the forfeit for the loser of the Premier League Predictor League, please send them in at editor@dartsworld.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at dartsworld magazine, and you can put your suggestions in there as well.
Please, guys, we need better suggestions than that. I'd rather do the spicy chip that you mentioned last week. I'd much rather do that than go to any darts event with a Liverpool top on. No, thank you.
So, with all that being said and done, the only thing for us to say is game, shot, and match for this episode. My name is AJ Umston Toft.
And I'm Harry Masterson.
And we will see you in the next round.
Bye, guys.